Good afternoon, my friend Ray J. How are you?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself, Sheree?
I cannot complain. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I just want to get started by sharing with you my healthy snack that I'm having. I had an unhealthy slice of pizza earlier, so I'm going to be good right now. I
Okay.
made a smoothie. It's with
Oh man, that
banana
looks really good.
and mixed berries. Yes, that's my healthy snack for now. What are you having?
Wow. So I went to Salada and I have a salad. So I may not eat that much while we're recording because I tend to be a messy eater, but I will eat this one bite right here.
Yeah, I get it. I get it, my friend. I'm exactly
Plus,
the same. I'll have food everywhere.
and I chew loud. So
Oh, well, we don't hear you now on the microphone, so you're really good. Let
oh,
me
good.
start by just introducing Ray to the healthies, and then we're going to get started because we want to dive in deeply with being able to overcome our limited beliefs. So, Ray J is actually an author of a publication called Victory Guaranteed. And listen, I tell you, you want to get connected with that publication. It's a weekly publication that he shares a lot about overcoming limited belief and just how to live your best life. There's so many different topics that he's covering. And although I think you launched it like at the beginning of the year, or was it last
Correct.
year?
No, it was January 1st of
Okay.
this year.
And already it's like
Yep.
really one of my daily things that I go to, because what he does is not only will he give you tips on whatever he's teaching, he also lays out a daily Monday through Friday plan of things that you could do to support what he's sharing. So I highly recommend that you get contact with Victory Guaranteed, and I will leave that link in the show notes for you. Ray is also a director of learning and development, and one of the favorite things that I love about him is he's an avid traveler. Whenever I think about going someplace, I think, okay, Ray's probably been there. So I'm going to let Ray do a little introduction of himself. And then, Ray, if you don't mind, share a little bit about how you became the avid traveler you are. When I heard that story, I was thoroughly impressed because, as the Healthies knew about me, I didn't grow up as a child doing a lot of traveling. For the summers, we typically
Okay.
just on our front porch. We didn't do a whole lot. It was I didn't begin to travel until I became an adult. So when I learned about your background and how much you were just groomed to be who you are today, I was thoroughly impressed. So why don't you share a little bit of that with the healthies?
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for uh, allowing me to share this platform with you today. It means whole lot. And so, just to kind of give y'all a background of who I am. So, my name is Ray Jackson. As you can see, I got a lot of gray hair, so I'm not as young as I used to be, but it's all good because, I think as I get older, I have less limitations. Okay, let me just put it like that. I got to the point in life where obviously I don't know everything, and I don't even claim to know everything, but I've been through enough to realize the stuff that used to hold me back, back in the day, it's just has really no power over me anymore. And I've grown and I've learned that. And so I'm sharing that because just a really quick story. So this is crazy when I share this. So when I was a little kid, I didn't talk for the first, I think it was 8 years of my life. I only spoke to my mom, my dad, and my sister. I didn't speak to anybody else outside of our household. So much so that when I first started school, so when I went to kindergarten and also first grade, didn't talk to anyone, didn't talk to the kids that were in the class, even my friends, and also the teachers. I didn't talk to anybody. And it wasn't until my second grade that I actually started not taking, but talking. And the lady that was my first grade teacher, she moved up with us to second grade. She became a second grade teacher when I got into second grade. And so
Yeah.
she took a liking to me. And so she made arrangements with my mom to come over to our house. So first of all, I was one of those kids that actually I probably didn't learn this until I became an adult. I thought all the teachers lived at the school. So just to see the teachers outside of school was just like crazy to me. And so
Yeah.
so the teacher made an arrangement with my mom to come over to our house because my mom was telling the school, like, my son talks, he's just extremely shy. And
Right.
but at home he's just his normal self. So my teacher came by
Uh-huh.
I heard the doorbell ring, but I was in my room doing my own thing. I was in my own little world. So um, my mom called me out to come into the living room. I went into the living room and I was like, what in the world? Like, my teacher was like in our house. Like I said, I thought teachers lived at the school. So it's like, what in the world are you doing like on our couch? Like that just blew my mind. And then she heard me when I was in the room. She could hear my voice. She could hear me talking and playing and stuff. So I was like, oh no, now she knows that I can talk. So after that, so she I, probably a couple times throughout the week. So during show and tell time, the kids would be doing the show and tell stuff, and then she would have me come up to her desk and actually read to her. And so that's what got me to the point where you talk about limitations. That's what got me comfortable with speaking to other people outside of my immediate family. So from that point forward, slowly, but over time, I became more comfortable and and just speaking. And what's so crazy, nowadays I'm a corporate trainer, plus
Exactly.
I preach on the side, and it's just like that just blows my mind every time I think about that. And people never believe me when I tell them this, but that was my first 8 years of life was like that,
I did
you
not
know?
know that story. And I'm one of the ones that it's hard to believe, because knowing you now, to think that you were this introverted, shy person who didn't speak to accept a select group of people, that's amazing. So, yeah, but it's absolutely how God works. So, that teacher was a blessing. I wish we had many more like that, because there are so many Rays sitting in classrooms that just need that right person to bring them forward. And it makes me think of my teacher, Miss Robinson, who
Okay.
I accredit with so much of my leadership skills. She would always force me to do things that I didn't want to do as a young girl. Come to the first of the class, the top of the class, and say something or speak or go to the office and tell them this or that. Things that I didn't want to have anything to do, but she
Wow.
definitely pushed. And your story reminds me of that as well. So thank you. That's great for sharing. And what about traveling? Why are you such an
Yeah.
avid traveler today?
So when my parents first got married, so I'm the youngest. So I have a sister, an older sister. We're 8 years apart. So before my sister was actually born, my parents, when they first got married, made I guess they made a deal with one another. They said we both work really hard, and so the way that they were going to reward themselves, they promised that they would every single year take a vacation. Okay, and they did that for their entire marriage. So my dad is no longer alive. My mom is, but the whole time up until like his latter years, they traveled all over the place. So my mom and dad have been to all 50 states. They've been to about probably like 10 to 20 different countries. And so as a kid, so by the time I came along, I was only months old when my parents, we took a cross Canada trip.
Okay.
I'm originally from New York. And so went up the East Coast, up through New York, up to Canada, and did a cross Canadian trip from coast to coast pretty much, and then headed on the way back. So um, I've been traveling since less than a year old, basically,
Yes.
is what I'm trying to say. So I've been fortunate enough that I've been to all 49 out of the 50 states. The only one that I haven't been to personally has been Alaska. And
Yes.
then I would say probably like over the last 6 or so years, I've started venturing out more in the Latin America space. And so actually, as I speak, so my mom actually lives in Panama. She moved there. She moved to Costa Rica first, and then just last year she moved to Panama. My sister left the U.S. She and her husband retired early, and they left about I think it's about 5 years ago, maybe 5 6 years ago, and they live actually in Costa Rica. And then
Wow.
Cherie, you don't know this, but in the morning I have an early morning flight. I'm heading down to the Caribbean for the week, and this is actually my first solo trip.
Yeah.
So I've gone on trips, by myself, but it's usually been for work. But this is actually my
Yes.
first leisure solo trip. So I'm nervous because I've never done this before. Um,
Yeah.
Nervous, not because I'm scared, but nervous is like, what in the world am I going to do? Like, I've never been where I'm going. I've never been there before. Don't know
Okay.
anything, but I'm excited about it because I'm like, look, I got a cheap ticket. So one thing I love to do, I'm frugal, and I always like
Yes.
getting deals. And so I got
Yes.
a cheap
Remember
flight
that.
from here in Texas to the Caribbean. and I'm actually going to work. So I work 100% remote. So I'm taking off next Friday. So when I come back, I can just come back without having to worry about work. So that's the beauty of working remote, that
Yes.
you can still work, but you can be all over the place without burning vacation days. And so
It,
kind of figured it
that
out.
is
So
that is so fantastic. Well,
I'm super
listen,
excited.
yeah, and hearing that you're leaving in the morning, I am even more impressed that you would take time out with us this evening. I would be frantically
Absolutely.
packing. You are probably way ahead of me.
Now I was packing right before this, but like I tend to say, like, you know what? By the time I get ready to go, everything will be done and ready. So you just
You
kind of roll
are
the punches.
You are so correct. Well, that is fantastic. I appreciate that. And we are going to get started because now I know I've got to get you on your flight on time as well. So
No worries.
I am gonna share my screen and let me know if you are able to see Healthy Thinking with Ray Jackson. Is that the title?
It is. Yep.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, we'll get started and we're gonna do our overcoming limited beliefs. We're going to do them in a fun way so that we're not doing just the traditional way that we would normally present the limited beliefs. This time we're going to choose our favorite number. And I'm going to start with you. What's your favorite number?
7.
Seven. Yeah, that lucky seven. Okay. So number seven says, it takes money to make money. Talk to us about that one.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. So I will say that I agree with that statement somewhat, not 100%, but somewhat. And by that, what I mean is that it doesn't necessarily have to be your money. It could be someone else's money that you use to better yourself, basically. And by that, I'm not talking about taking out loans or anything like that. I'm not talking about debt. What I'm really talking about is getting other people to invest in whatever dream or whatever thing that you want to pursue. You think about startup companies and venture capitalists. That's all that is. It's just these people that have a great idea and they're passionate about it, but they may not have the financial resources to kind of make it happen. And
That's
so, shows like Shark Tank, all they're doing is really honestly selling a dream, and they're persuading investors to invest in them, so that way they can turn that money, invest into their company, and make it work, so that way they can get this idea off the ground, and hopefully get some type of return on investment for those investors for really being able to pursue whatever it is that you desire to pursue. So, like I said, I agree with that statement somewhat, not in the traditional sense where people might of it, hey, if I don't have any money, then I can't do whatever it takes. And I totally disagree with that.
absolutely. And that's the way that I've heard this particular statement, just as you
Uh-huh.
describe it. I can't move ahead or accomplish something that I want to accomplish because I don't have the money to. And that's just such a limited way of thinking. Instead of just, looking at it differently, how can I get that money? Because you're 100% right. So many endeavors are accomplished because people use other people's money. It's done every day, and
Absolutely.
we don't have to just look at the one source. That's a fantastic way to look at it. Thank you for that. And
Absolutely.
I'm gonna select my favorite number. Believe it or not, it's close to yours. It's the number six.
Okay.
And number six says, "Listen, we're still on money. The rich get richer, and the poor get poor." What do you think about that one?
So it does seem like that, doesn't it? So when you look
It,
at like TV, when you look at the news, when you look at whatever's on social media, it definitely does look like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And I know in some parts of the world, it kind of truly reflects that. However, the thing that I think I think it's our focus
yes,
that's limiting our belief as it relates to to wealth. And by that, what I really mean is that real wealth, as far as I'm concerned, is really built in, or it's like grounded in relationships. So kind of going back to what we just said about about the last example, it's others people's money. That's what we alluded to. So the most important thing, it's that relationship, it's that connection that you're able to establish that will enable you to, perhaps in this particular example, increase your wealth, or to, or to get, more financial stability in your life.
That's right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that, more money or more, in order to have wealth, that's the only way that you can do this. And really, the poor get poor, because there have been people that have been so dirt poor that they didn't even know where their next meal would come from, but yet and still they're standing today as either multi-millionaires or perhaps billionaires today. And then you have the complete opposite. You got extremely wealthy people that are poor and broke, as far as relationships are concerned, as far as health is concerned, as far as joy and happiness in life. So it's like, yeah, the grass always tends to look greener on the other side. But it's like, once you arrive to that spot, it's like, wow, this is nothing like what I thought it would be. You have that sense of emptiness. And so that's why I think, in my opinion, real wealth is really dealing with relationships. How much are you willing to invest in those relationships, where it's not take. It's like, how much can I give? Because if I give, I can guarantee you I'm going to get something in return. And that's not necessarily my motive. My motive is really to help others and to give, so that way they can step up their game and they can improve their life. And in doing that, it definitely helps us in the process. And so for me, like I said, it could seem like that, the rich get richer, the poor get poor, but the real wealth is, contained within those relationships that we're able to cultivate.
You're 100% correct, my friend, and I definitely agree with you. And I always think too that we, particularly here in North America, we are incredibly blessed, because there are
Hmm.
some countries, as you've mentioned, where people know what real poorness is. Not to have just the basic necessities is just a challenge for people. And
Yeah.
these two particular limited beliefs certainly deal with money. Ray, do you remember if you ever had the limited belief that we see so often with money before you understood the value of relationships? Did you struggle with money as a limited belief?
Honestly, I can't say I have. So like, my parents worked extremely hard. So both my parents not grew up, they were actually adults during the civil rights movement, and they actually participated in the civil rights movement. And so my parents have always had to fight it for whatever they, were able to achieve or accumulate in life. And
Right.
so knowing that, and they always kept it real with myself and my sister, even though we kind of grew up way differently than they did, but
Correct.
they always kept us grounded in what was. And they always made sure that we knew that, hey, the only why y'all have this lifestyle, the only reason why you're growing up in this area, is because of what we did to ensure that y'all had a better opportunity than us. And so when it came to money, so my parents are very, I guess you could say, frugal in the sense that not necessarily cheap, but frugal. So if they would spend money, but they would, like, for example, for clothes,
Okay.
my my parents would, like, my dad, um, actually, both of my parents would actually take me to New York City, maybe like once a year or so, to go buy suits that were, off the rack, but they were actually tailored to me. So like, we would have like the guy who does the alterations and stuff, fix it up for me so that way it fit and everything. My parents always believed in buying quality. So like,
Oh,
those suits, I had it like for my entire childhood. So,
wow.
as I grew, obviously I got something that fit. But if I, stayed at a steady weight and height, I kept that suit the whole time. So my parents always believed in quality, meaning that, hey, you spend money to get quality, but it should last you for a lifetime. And so, give you a quick example on how that impacted me. So my
Yeah.
the very
Uh-huh.
first car that I actually purchased with the money that I earned from working, I
Sure.
it was I bought it in 1997. That's when I got my first car. I had that car up until, I believe, I had it for 19 years. And so,
Gotcha.
first owner, only owner, had it. When I got it, it only had 36 miles. When I got
Wow.
rid of it, it had over 300,000 miles. And so,
Oh,
and I had paid, I remember my friends say, hey, aren't you going to get a new car? I'm like, for what? Like, why do I need a new car when this thing it's getting me to everywhere I need to go? Never had any issues. The only thing that I've had to invest in was tires because I was traveling so much. But
right.
yeah, I'm one of these. Look, I'm gonna buy whatever I need to buy, but
Right.
but the rest of it, I'm either going to save or invest it or what have you. But just to throw money away, that's never really been a thing. At times, I have been a little loose with money, but
Sure.
not to the point where it was just like, you know, it's going to crush me. But typically, it's been, you know, I just haven't. I don't know. My parents just grounded and rooted me, and to let me understand that, hey, you always have to have something just in case of a rainy day. You know,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
just to be able to like the way I'm traveling right now, I'm a frugal traveler. So people might think whatever, like, hey, Ray, you're a jet setter. Little do they know that I am like really cheap and frugal when it comes to traveling, because for me, it's about the experience. I could care less, about posting stuff online, which I do post pictures of my trips online, but it's not about that. It's those experiences. That's what I'm going to retain and hold on to. That's what my kids will retain and hold on to. That's what I retained and held on to just from the exposure that my parents gave me. And to me,
Absolutely.
that's priceless. That's where my passion lies. And that's what keeps me hyped and motivated. But yeah, money never really been an issue for me. It's just, to me, I look at it as a tool and as a resource to do the things that I need to do or desire to do in life.
And you hit the nail on the head for me. Money certainly was a limited belief for me. And one of the things that helped me is to change the way that I looked at it. It is a tool
Okay.
and it's a resource. So you're 100% right. When I started looking at it as a tool, I began to ask myself, how, instead of saying the negative, the rich always get rich and the poor get poor,
Yeah.
how can I improve my wealth? So just asking myself that question begin to allow me to think of things that I can do extra, get a part time job in addition to the full time job. Yes, it required hard work, but it got me out of that poverty thinking and it certainly
Yeah.
changed my life financially. So I think just changing our view of things and
Okay.
viewing money as a tool and a resource is the first step to beginning to break that. Overcome that limited belief. I really like that, Ray. Thank you. And I'm going to go up
Excellent.
to the top here so we can start at the beginning and won't miss one. Let's see.
Sounds
This
good.
first one says, bad things always happen to me. What's going on when people think this?
So I'm going to get biblical on y'all. So I have to think of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph had the coat of many colors. His dad gave him
Yes.
that. He was like the youngest out of all these brothers, and his brothers pretty much treated him like trash. And because Joseph was a dreamer, very optimistic, and his brothers hated that. They're like, "Hey, we're out here working really hard and stuff, and you're talking crazy talk, basically, alluding to the fact that one day they'll end up bowing down to him and serving him." But he was just a kid. If he was guilty of anything, probably because he probably talked too much. He probably popped off at the mouth too much,
That was
making
it.
people feel some kind of way.
Yep.
However, Joseph, when I think about bad things always happen, he could have easily slipped into that mode of bad things always happen to me. So his brothers basically they human trafficked him, sold him as
Yes.
a slave to foreigners, and then he became like a slave to these rich people, you know. And then, he was accused of trying to get with this married woman who tried to seduce him. He
Yep.
resisted that, so she accused him, and then he got thrown into prison, and he was in prison for a long time. However, at no point do you ever see or read about Joseph getting depressed or just giving up or what have you. So he went from being like trafficked to being a slave to being in prison to eventually becoming prime minister of the country that he ended up in. And it's just like, how in the world does that happen? And like I said, at any point he could have just had like the pity party. It could have stayed into that mode, and really, it could have gone wrong easily.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, he never really had that negative mindset. So I'm saying that to say that in his case, and to me that's like a great example, the most horrible things happened to Joseph. If anybody had an excuse to give up and say bad things always happen to me, it was definitely him. And the
For
fact that he
sure.
did not, and actually every bad thing that happened to him honestly became like a stepping stone to him eventually fulfilling his purpose. Literally, that's what happened to him. And so, I love to think of bad things that happen to us as being our platform. So when you think about, a lot of people are like into becoming entrepreneurs.
Right.
And so the thing is, it's like, okay, how can I become an entrepreneur? It seems like everybody else is doing the same thing that I want to do. So it's like the thing that we really have to hone in on is like what differentiates me from my competition. The way that I'm learning, the things that I've learned, it's those hardships, it's those things in which we've had to endure. That's what sets up your platform, because that's how you differentiate yourself. Because say for instance, if you were abused as a kid, for example,
Right.
which is horrible,
Right.
but now you've turned it around, and you're doing something positive, okay, and you're being productive. The way, let's just say, whatever the industry is, whatever you decide to do as an entrepreneur in this case, the way that you differentiate yourself from other folks, whatever product or service you're selling, you could target those folks that have been abused as children who are now adults. That becomes your
Absolutely.
target audience. No one else can speak to them in the way that you speak to them in this particular realm of whatever it is that you're doing. And so that's what I really mean by turning our problems into a platform. It's just a matter of
Yes.
our thought process and how we view those problems or those bad things that happen to us.
Absolutely. And that's certainly the way to overcome this one here. And Joseph was a great example. I have to agree with you 100% there. Love that story. Number
Absolutely.
two says eating healthy is expensive.
So I got a pretty straightforward response to that. Getting sick and dying is extremely costly.
Oh my goodness. That one is so true.
So when you think about hospital bills, and when you think about how much it costs to bury somebody, that buying what healthier food doesn't even compare to those costs. You know what I'm saying? And so just making your health a priority
That's
to
right.
save you, if you're really into money, it can save you a ton of money, you know?
Absolutely.
And not only that, it can help preserve your life. Now, granted, we're not bulletproof where we can just, endure anything,
Right.
but it does put you in a better standing where, hey, if you've done all that you can do, that's all you can do. But
That's right.
if we're just consistently being destructive towards our bodies, well, it's going to catch up to us sooner than later. And to me, that's the ultimate price that we pay for not eating healthy or not, taking care of our physicality or well-being.
100% agree with you there. And in this economy, you can buy cheap food, and to me, it's overpriced. So I just go for the healthy anyway, because the healthy food has always been that price, and that didn't fluctuate as much as the cheap food that is astronomically priced. So I think it's the economy that is helping us to just eat
Oh
healthy
yeah.
food easier because it's high anyway for the crack. So I might as well buy something healthy that's going to be beneficial to me. So I really agree with that 100%.
And just really quickly before we get to this next one, I'll just say this really quickly, and then I'll be quiet. So one last thing about the healthy food. So that's another reason why I love traveling outside of the country. In these
Yes.
countries that we call third world or developing countries, they're
Yes.
a lot better off health wise than we are. You would think that having all this wealth in this country that we have, you would think that we would be some of the healthiest people on the planet, but we are not.
Absolutely.
And I think we get caught up in this mindset that you know we equate what they call fine dining as being wealthy and everything, but a lot of that fine dining is it's poison that we're putting into our bodies. Where like when you go to some of these foreign countries, it's the basics. People actually grow their own produce. They raise their own chickens where they can get eggs and stuff. Everything's organic just by default, you know. And so that's one thing I love about traveling, because I can eat more and lose weight in the process when I travel internationally than me trying to, eat minimally and still gain weight here in the US. It's just weird how that plays out. But I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that.
But that's a great point, and thank you for sharing that because you're 100% correct. When you travel like that, you do learn that wow, these people are eating healthier than we are, and we have way more wealth than they do. So yeah, that is a
Absolutely.
great point to remember as well. Okay, number three, I always fail. So what's the point in trying? I hear this one a lot.
Wow. So this is a mindset that I adopted recently with respect to failure. So failure to me only happens when we stop trying.
Right.
And so, because oftentimes we quit prematurely. I think for me, the biggest thing that I live by currently, and when I say currently, I mean over the last 3 to 4 years, it's just a matter of being consistent.
That's right.
Whatever it is that I'm doing, or whatever it is that we're all doing, we have to be consistent. First, you got to start. Okay,
That's right.
that's the biggest jump. If we start, once you start, you don't quit. You just keep going. You keep
Absolutely.
going, and eventually, you will succeed at whatever it is that you're trying to do. Granted, there will be mistakes. Those are learning opportunities. So you just learn a new way on how not to do something. Then you just don't do it that way again. You just figure out a different way to do it. But um, yeah, failure only happens when we quit or we
I
never start.
agree 100%. Yeah, this one here is one that unfortunately, like you're saying, I do hear this one a lot. And failure is some people have used that, and I know John Maxwell teaches it a lot too. You can fail forward, meaning that
Hmm.
continually failing will take you to where you ultimately want to go. I can't remember the number of times that Thomas Edison failed with the light bulb, but it was quite a few number of times. And now,
Sure.
he kept trying. He never stopped. And it's what you're saying, that perseverance will pay off. And you have to not look at it as failure. I'm trying again. I'm going to give it another attempt. And one time it is going to work. So you have to be
Absolutely.
really persistent and consistent when you're working on anything that's new for you. That's
Absolutely.
all right. Let's go to number 4 here. We're
Okay.
wiping these down. Relationships require too much work and offer too little reward. Wow. I relate to this one too much.
So I like to say for that one, anything worth having is definitely worth working for. And I think the
Yes.
problem is um, we're trying to get into relationships that we have no business being in. I think that's the real issue. It's like, are we investing into a relationship with somebody that's very toxic for us? If that's the case, then yeah, it's most definitely it's not worth doing it because you're investing in the wrong relationship. But if it's people that respect you and who love you for who you are, and they're not wanting you to jump through hoops and loops, and you feel like you can be yourself and they can be themselves, then those are the types of relationships that we probably should be investing in. And I know a lot of people say, well, that's boring. That's boring. But like, I'll take boring any day over risk and excitement that puts my life at stake. It's not worth it. And so,
That's right.
or being abused or being ridiculed or what have you. So to me, I think it's really a matter of what what type of relationships are we investing in? And I think that's the real issue. So if it's a solid, strong relationship, good people that you're dealing with, then by all means, yeah, you got to invest into that if that's what you desire. And it will definitely have a return on your investment where like I said, you can be yourself. You don't have to worry about this person ever doing you in. And you can treat them with respect as well as, expect to receive that respect from them as well. So,
Agree 100%. Yeah, I think with this one here, you hit the nail on the head. The right relationships don't require as much work, and they have the
mhm,
reward that you're looking for. So it's really the right relationship. If you are always in relationships with people who are toxic or not causing you to grow, then that's going to be a lot of
mhm,
work. But if you find the right relationships, it doesn't have that much. It doesn't require the type of work that I'm reading about here. I agree with you
absolutely.
100%. Yep. Ready for the next one? Okay.
Sure.
Money, back to another money. Money is the root of all evil. I think I know what you're going to say for this one, but I'm going to listen.
Okay. So the first thing that comes to mind is that it's not necessarily that money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And honestly, kind of going back to what I said before, it's a tool. It's a resource for us to use. And if it gets to the point where it's the root of all evil, then that means we're idolizing it. And
That's
it's not meant to be idolized. It's literally a resource. You know, but I know that people do idolize it. People hoard it. People use it to abuse and mistreat others. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like water. It's like, any other resource. It's literally that, because at some point, this is just my personal belief. I think the money that we currently have is going to become useless. It's going to be worth nothing. And so it's like, okay, so we've invested our entire lifetime to something that's not necessarily going to be worth something in a few years or several years or what have you. Then it's like, what do you really have? And I think once again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. That's why it's so important for us to invest in relationships, because that's what we'll have. That's what we had when we first started out, when we were first born.
Yep.
And when we die, or at least when we're on our deathbed, the money's not going to save you. But at least if you have those proper relationships and those people that truly love you, they can be with you in those last moments of your life, and you at least have that sense of comfort that you have, that at least that you get when you're around those folks. And so that's what will last, in my opinion. It's not these fleeting resources that we often get caught up in.
Absolutely. And I'm always amazed when I hear people quote this, saying money is the root of all evil. I always think to myself, okay, so you've never read that scripture for yourself. Because if you do, read that for yourself, you clearly know that it doesn't say money's the root of all evil, it's the love of it. And I knew you were going to pick up on that. So thank you for sharing. Absolutely. And correct with it. Yes, yes. Okay, let's look at number 8.
Okay,
I will never find love. I'll always be alone.
that's an interesting one. So I think for me, the response is love and loneliness. Loneliness are two different things.
Ooh,
Okay, because you could be surrounded by a ton of people. You can have quote unquote relationships with millions of people and still feel extremely lonely. You know what I'm saying?
yes.
And so it's like, for me, love is, first of all, and I know a lot of people consider it a feeling. It's not a feeling. It's a principle.
Come on.
It's a guideline. It's a standard that we should be living by.
That's right.
The feelings and emotions that we associate being loved, a lot of times that's lust. It
Oh,
has nothing to do with love. And so I think once we learn what love truly is,
mhm.
then it's like, you know, loneliness really has nothing to do with. You would actually never be lonely if you understood what love really is, because guess what? You can get love from your next door neighbor, because they see that your driveway needs to be, if you live in a snowy area, it needs to be shoveled, or they see that your lawn is just ridiculous, so maybe they go ahead and have their kid cut your grass. To me, that's love.
Absolutely.
Having family members that adore you, and that are always checking in on you. To me, that's true love. But loneliness, I think that occurs a lot of times because instead of really embedding true love in our hearts, we started to put stuff in our lives,
That's right.
idolizing certain things, and that's what really happens. We see all the time, like in you hear all these sob stories of celebrities that either overdose or they commit suicide or what have you. Like, how in the world does that happen when they got all these riches and all this wealth, and they got all these people around them? It's because they've where love should be, they've actually put in all the stuff that I just mentioned in
Yep,
place of that, which
that's right.
causes them to feel lonely and to do horrible things to themselves. Where you
That's
can
right.
have the poorest person on the planet, and they could be so rich with love and joy. And it's just like, how in the world does that happen? I actually had that experience. I don't know if we have time for me to share that really quickly,
Sure.
but I've
Go
had
ahead.
that experience. So the very first time that I ever went to Costa Rica, it was
Yeah.
actually during Christmas time. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm going there from the United States during Christmas time. So you know how here in the States we go bananas with the Christmas lights and the direct and the decorations and the shopping and the Black Friday deals and the whatever. We go bananas over that stuff.
Yes, we do.
So literally the very first time I went to Costa Rica, we flew to, my sister lives there, so we flew to visit her, and then she
Uh-huh.
took us over to the Caribbean side of the country, and we were staying in the jungle. So the town, the little village or whatever you want to call it that we stayed in, only had probably like about 15 or so people. And
Wow.
when I say jungle, it was true jungle where like the Airbnb that we stayed in,
Yeah.
there's no glass window. We had like these like I don't know what you want to call it, but basically there was something in the window to keep stuff from coming into your house, but there's no glass. You can anything that's rumbling or rustling outside, you definitely hear it. You think it's inside the room. But like, they had the monkeys, they had all these weird looking insects, they had those poisonous frogs and everything. And I'm just like, what in the world is going on here? Like it was just like somebody had just scooped me up and dropped me in the middle of, the Amazon or something like
Right.
that. And I was like, but then the thing is, this is the only reason why I'm sharing this. So we met people, locals that live there, and I'm like, just like amazed by the joy and the peace that they had. And I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Like, why are you so happy? You know?
Right.
And like this one guy that we met, he actually lived in a tree. And it wasn't even like a tree house like you see like on HGTV and nothing like that. He just had like some wood on the ground. He had like these wooden planks that kind of went up the side of the tree, and then he had
Yeah.
like a structure that was built like as a floor, like for the second floor. But basically, you're climbing up the tree, and it's like a wood structure up there. Nothing, no walls or anything like that. And I'm like, why is this dude so happy? Like, first of all, why did this dude even invite us to his house? We just
That's
met
right.
him just in passing the street, and he's like, come and come visit me, and I want to show y'all where I live.
Wow.
I'm like, here we have to like scurry and put the clothes up, wash the dishes or put them in the dishwasher, so because we're having some guests over. This dude had no walls, no nothing, but you would have thought he lived in the palace. He was so happy to share the quote unquote little that he had, and I'm like, here I am, making good money, but stressed out like I can't even imagine. And for the life of me, I'm like, why is this dude so happy and so excited and just so at peace where I'm miserable? And for me, it's just like, what I'm really trying to is that, the stuff that we kind of put into our lives doesn't bring joy. It's that that relationships, once again, meeting people that you love and care about, and expressing that love consistently. That's where that peace and joy and happiness comes from. So it's like that was one of those defining moments for me, because ever since then, I would say that was a turning point for me, where it's just like I
Yes.
stopped seeing the quote unquote value in the things that we tend to value here in North America, and I was
Yes.
like, yeah, this stuff, I'm good. I don't need all that stuff. And so at that point, when I came back home, I started getting rid of a lot of stuff. I became like a minimalist, more or less.
Wow. That is fantastic. And that's such a great story to share. So thank you for sharing that one. And that's the beauty of traveling, I think. And I was sharing this with my daughter. Travel just
Uh-huh.
expands your whole consciousness to me. When I started traveling, I just saw the world differently because it was larger
Hmm.
than my block, than my city, than my state, and then the whole US. I saw people that lived so differently than I did, and that
Hmm.
helped me to expand my view of life.
That's awesome.
Yes, that was a great
I
story
love
to
it.
share. Yeah, looking at number 9.
Okay.
I don't have enough time to exercise. Wow, I'm guilty of this one as well.
So I love that. So that is I'm a big thing, but let me just leave it as that. So for me, in response to this, so the way I look at it, health is wealth, and a part of that wealth is investing into our physicality, more or less. There's really three things that I really um, look at when it comes to our overall health. So you got, diet, what you eat, and then you also have movement or exercise, and the last piece is sleep. Getting enough rest. If we have those three components, we're doing those things properly, we won't have any health issues. Now, granted, something crazy, the environment might be screwed up and stuff, but
Right.
still, even with all that, you still kind of minimize the likelihood of you getting like severely sick if you're trying your best to take care of yourself. It doesn't negate all that, but you're not just willingly putting yourself out there to just, get sick and die or what have you. So, the way I look at it, if we don't prioritize our health, that means we don't prioritize life. all the stuff that we kind of fill our lives up with, then like, what's the point of doing any of that if you're in the hospital on your sick bed? You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly right. We don't have time to be unhealthy, and we have to
There you go.
prioritize that. I definitely have found time to do it was late last night when I went for my three
Okay.
mile walk, but I got it in. And,
Oh,
it
wow.
doesn't matter that it was at 9 p.m. I did manage to get it in. And that's just so important. When you want to do it, you'll find the way. When you don't, you'll find an excuse. So we
That
have
is
to
so
choose.
true.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. Last but not least, our number 10 here. Oh gosh, I am too old or young. How often have we heard this one?
All the time, really. So for me,
Exactly.
this is probably something, huh? What'd you say?
No, I was agreeing with you. We hear it all the
Oh, yeah,
time.
absolutely. So for me, I think this is probably something that I adopted over the last 3 to 4 years as far as this mindset. So for me, as long as I got breath in my lungs, I have an opportunity, you know? So it doesn't matter if I'm young or old. If God has given me this desire or this thought or what have you, then act on it. That's becoming so important to me now. It's like if you thought of it, and if it's something that's going to be helpful or productive, then just do it. Because carrying that guilt, carrying that burden of, man, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that. It's just like, to me, that's horrible. I hate that feeling because I've done that. I've been in that spot before where it's just like I didn't do things because I was too scared, or I was unsure as to what would happen and things of that nature, and that ate at me.
Yes.
So that's why now, and I know people talk about me when it comes to me traveling, but I don't really care, because I'm like,
Right.
look, God has given me put me into a position where I can have that freedom and flexibility and mobility. I'm gonna take every little bit of that, and I'm gonna enjoy it as much as I can, because that's what
That's
brings me joy and happiness and peace. And then being able to share that and hopefully inspire others through my travel. To me, that's like the icing on the cake.
I agree with that one, Ray, wholeheartedly. And we've got breath in our bodies and in our lungs, and that means it's another day. And I can't really count how many times I've seen people in their 70s, even 80s, starting podcasts and doing things that they had never thought
Yep.
they could do. And it's not too late. And the opposite, too. I look at my daughter and the youth around her friends and the things that they're doing. That's so much. More bolder and takes more courage than I had at their age. So we are just in a place where we could do the impossible as long as we stick to God and keep Him first and asking Him His guidance and direction. I don't think we'll ever go wrong.
Absolutely. And one last thing I want to say about that. So this is March, right? So it's what, Women's History Month. Is that correct?
Right, it is.
So I want to brag on the fact that my mom will be 89 years old next week, and
89.
89. She no longer lives in the United States. She lives independently on her own. Didn't know anyone in Panama. She's already there. She's established a whole community of folks around her. So I would have never left my mom there if I felt like she was going to be at risk. But
Exactly.
when I went to go see my mom, I think it was October. I think it was, yeah, October of last year. Uh, I had never seen my mom so happy. She literally had a glow. I was like,
Wow.
the first thing when I first saw, her, I was like, Ma, you look so different. You look happy. Like,
Right.
you look beautiful. And I'm just like, wow. So I'm like, this is what it. So is this what happens when you move abroad and you just at peace?
Exactly.
And like, to me, like, my mom is like, now she's like my hero basically. My dad and my mom have been, but especially now that my mom is
Yeah.
on her own. So like my mindset when it comes to me, like, trying to go through or push through challenges, I'm
Right.
like, well, shoot, my mom lives in Panama independently. If she can do it, whatever little thing that I'm going through, I know I can accomplish this. Especially the fact that I believe God is leading me in these certain areas. Then, by all means, I can get through this. So, my mom is truly my inspiration to keep moving forward, and I just love the fact that she's doing what she does. And she always calls me like, "Are you? Do you think I really should be doing this? Is this crazy?" I'm like, "Ma, it doesn't matter. Like, you have so many people looking at you as inspiration.
That's right.
Over that alone, you have to continue to go along this route because, you're inspiring the rest of us. And honestly, I think the thing that keeps her going is the fact that she has a loving community of folks there, but also across, the United States. So she's always checking in on her peers, family members, loved ones, and that's what keeps her going. And so, yeah, so that whole thing about being too old or too young, that's a lie, that's a myth, that's an excuse that people use or a crutch to not do whatever it is that they need to be doing.
100% agree. And I am so happy to hear that about your mom. That is such a great story to end with, because it inspires us to know that we can still do it too. Ray, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for
Oh,
taking the time out
absolutely.
to help to help get our thinking straight. We so appreciate this and your time. And will you come back again and share more
Oh,
with
yeah.
us? All
I would
right, good.
love to. I would love to.
Awesome.
Thank you
Well,
so
we've got
much.
that commitment. Certainly, certainly. Where can they follow you? Where can the healthies follow you? I know that we've got your victory guaranteed. I'm going to include that going to include that link in the show notes. Where else would you like for them to
Absolutely.
follow?
Yeah, so I'm primarily on LinkedIn as well as on Facebook. So on LinkedIn, you can just look up Ray Jackson. I'm in the Houston, Texas area.
Right.
So they can find me like that way. And then also on Facebook, same thing, just Ray Jackson. I think I
Okay.
listed myself as a digital creator, so people can find me. I think my profile is public, at least part of my profile. The profile that I want the public to see, and the
Right.
people that really know me, they see everything else. But yeah, so I'm on both of those platforms, and then once again, the newsletter. So I call it a newsletter, but everybody that I know that's subscribed, and they often tell me they're like, "No, Ray, it's more than a newsletter. It's like a mini
Exactly.
devotional." I'm like, "Really?" It's
They
so newsletter slash devotional thing. Um, so that's at victoryguaranteed.substack.com, and I know Cherie, you'll post that, but to me, that's where my passion lies now because I feel
yes.
like I'll end with this. So like I I'm glad you picked me to be on this particular episode because I have truly struggled with limiting beliefs, and so I used to think that you had like the at work Ray, you had like the at home Ray, and you had like the out and about in the community Ray, and I'm like
Yes.
that gets old quick. I'm
Yes,
like
it
I'm too
does.
old to be having like all these personalities at each of these spaces, and I'm like nah, everything needs to be on, you know. And so I got to the point where I was like, you know what? Well, God put it on my heart to start this faith-based newsletter, and I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to do this. I was so convicted about it. But if you had asked me this, what, 3 to 4 or 10 years ago, I would have said, there's no way. Like, people at work don't need to know my personal beliefs and thoughts and desires and what have you. That has nothing to do with that. But then I thought about it like, God is the source of everything good in my life. He
Absolutely.
gave me this job. He allowed me to get a degree. He allowed me to establish myself in this career or what have you. So it's like, I work for him. I've been laid off twice in my career, and he sustained me through all that. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? And so it's like,
Yes.
if people can freely post and talk about anything and on social media and publicly, I'm like, why can't I express my faith? You know, it's not for everybody. And
That's
I
right.
know that now. You know what I'm saying? I know that, and I'm good with that.
That's right.
And so it's just for me, it's extremely liberating to be who God has intended to be, and and also inspiring others through that process. To me, that's what's so transformational. So as I share, my desire is to help others to transform, but also in that process, it's transforming myself. Where
Yeah.
I've started to really care about others and their well-being. Where before I used to be selfish. It was all about if it wasn't going to benefit me, I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But now it's just like,
Yep.
got to do for others because that's where, once again, that's where wealth and health and everything else kind of resides in.
It's so, so true. Well, thank you again, my friend. This has been
Absolutely.
phenomenal. And we will definitely connect again. Safe travels to you.
Thank you
Blessings.
so much.
And we will connect when you return. Okay.
Appreciate it. You take care of yourself.
All righty. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.